All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started this evening. Hello, my name is Melissa Landis, and I am Elevate Palm Beach. And tonight I'm going to talk about redefining sustainability. And that's a picture of me. And you might be wondering what Elevate Palm Beach is exactly. I have my information there, my website, my phone number, my Facebook tag there, and my Instagram. The vision of Elevate Palm Beach is to be the leader of educational resources for changing the paradigm shift towards true sustainability. And I'll get into what I believe true sustainability is. And then the mission of Elevate Palm Beach is to be the bridge that reconnects people with themselves, each other, and the earth so that we may do better in our personal, professional, and spiritual lives through intentional educational workshops, programs, and events. And this particular talk is a part of that as I work towards opening our vision of what sustainability entails or could be in our personal lives. And doing better goes kind of into my story, and I'm going to tell a little bit of my story for contextual reasons of why this is important to me and how I kind of got into sustainability. So this is me at age 7 in 1991. I do want to apologize. My dog is playing. She's been sleeping all day, so she's playing now in the background. You might hear her every now and again. But this is me at age 7. I am planting some azaleas in my grandparents' backyard. I don't really remember this. I don't really know who let me dress myself. I look like a mini Where's Waldo, and I'm easily found in this very green backyard. But I do look like I'm enjoying myself, and I have always really loved being outside and in nature. In that same yard, there was a tree that I used to get caught climbing in all the time, to a point where my grandfather ended up cutting down the branches that were close to the ground, so I couldn't climb up. I think he was just afraid of me falling out of the tree. Actually, that might be like his arm over here. I don't know what that, oh, maybe it's my grandmother. That might be a skirt. She wore those long skirts all the time. But growing up, I loved being outside. I always felt kind of like an outsider, and everywhere I went, and the only place that I felt a sense of belonging was when I was outside. And that kind of went with me up into my adulthood, and just always feeling very out of place, like I was almost like in this weird meat suit kind of thing walking around. I was very familiar with the inside world and the fact that I had a physical body, and where that all connected was in nature. And then progressing the story forward to just in the past 4 or 5 years, I've been on this really tremendous journey of kind of redefining who I was and who I wanted to be and the kind of life that I wanted to have. So I've been doing a lot of inner work for myself over the past 4 or 5 years. And I finally got to a place where I wanted to have my outside world reflect what was going on in my inside world. So that looked like kind of clearing things up, clearing out the debris and the extra stuff out of my life, and really kind of honing in on this idea of sustainable living. And to me, it was sustainability. It was always I always kind of questioned what people were doing in the realm of sustainability, because for me, it was always so much more than just, recycling or, taking our cloth grocery bag to the store or getting solar panels or using those LED lights. There was a component of sustainability that people weren't talking about, and I couldn't for a long time put my finger on it. But as I learned more about it, and I'll get more into that into this conversation, I've been able to connect those pieces and figure out the right language as far as explaining what it is that I felt was missing from our conversations around sustainability. So that's how I want to redefine sustainability to include those things. So as also in context, I didn't grow up having a sustainable life. Eat meat, use straws, didn't consider much about how much I consumed or what I was throwing in the trash. So crossing over as an adult into a different lifestyle that is more sustainable has been rather difficult because our society has created something that makes it very easy for us not to be sustainable, and we actually have to now go out of our way to be more sustainable. And so even for myself, I'm not like a sustainability, got to do it this way or else, or complete judge-free zone as far as what phase you're in or having a sustainable life or lifestyle, because I too am working on it, and it's definitely a process. It's not an overnight thing. So hopefully this conversation will help in that process and identify other ways that you can also start to get more into that lifestyle. Because for me, it wasn't until I felt true belonging to myself and with nature. There's a spirituality component to it also that I'm going to bring up, but I'm not going to overemphasize because I know not too many people are very comfortable talking about spirituality. So in this particular talk, I probably won't press on that subject too much of it, maybe in the future, because I do think it's a pretty big component, which leads me up to my now. As far as education goes, I do have an MBA in entrepreneurship. The doing better part that you have seen as far as my mission, I always figured we could do better as far as our relationships go. So I first created Elevate Palm Beach to focus around corporate cultures and the relationships between upper management and their employees, because I've been in a lot of places where those relationships were not good. And I wanted to create something that helped us do better, and later turning it into more of a nature-based program, concentrating on systems thinking, design thinking, and team building, and also creating youth programming around those concepts as well. So that's what Elevate Palm Beach does. And also working on putting out more educational pieces for people to better incorporate sustainability in their personal lives. So on top of the MBA in entrepreneurship, I also just started my PhD in sustainable education. So this is also a piece of that came out of that so far. And it's definitely opened my eyes to what I have been doing, especially in the way we look at sustainability already, and wanting to expand on those still. So I haven't started much preparation or research on my dissertation yet, but I do hope to get more into, what would make it more personal, this lifestyle more personal for them to want to do the lifestyle, to want to care about changing the way that they do things in their life. So that's a background on me and context as to why I'm talking about sustainability and why I've made it such a prominent part of my business. So what is sustainability? To redefine sustainability, we have to first define it as it is currently defined. And according to Webster's dictionary, the first definition is of relating to or being a method of harvesting or using a resource so that the resource is not depleted or permanently damaged. Definition 2, of or relating to a lifestyle involving the use of sustainable methods. And that's kind of how we understand sustainability usually it's how people are usually introduced to the concept of sustainability. It's what businesses are talking about when they talk about being more sustainable, whether it's using the power of the sun with solar power, maybe they're talking about better recycling efforts, maybe they're talking about more gardening, switching over to LED lights, to lower energy use or water consumption. And again, those are very, I don't want to say surface level, because they're important. They're just as important as how I hope to redefine sustainability, but they're not the whole picture. They're just part of the picture of what sustainability is. So for me, and this is what I have on my website, I have an idea of true sustainability, and it is not just our efforts to go green or cut down on our impact on the environmental world. It takes on the ecological view that we are part of the environment, a part of the larger system that is interconnected, and therefore our relationships with one another are just as important as our impact to the land that we live. So I'm emphasizing relationships, and that's always been a big emphasis for me as far as everything that I've done throughout my life, and wanting to bring about this idea and focus more on it, the way we interact with one another, the way we communicate, the way we work together and collaborate. A lot of times people are just kind of put together, and they're expected to know how to do these things and do them well. And that's where a lot of conflict happens, because we don't actually slow down and take the time to build trust and really build those relationships. So an emphasis on the relationships. So when I talk about relationships and systems, we talk about systems thinking, or thinking in systems. And I have some resources there on the bottom if you want to learn more about systems thinking. There's a movie called Mind Walk, which it totally blew my mind. You can find it on YouTube, the full-length feature. And they talk about systems thinking. And that movie was based off a Capra book, which his name is below. He was a physicist and philosopher, and he's written some really great things about systems thinking. Janella Meadows wrote a book on systems thinking, and Peter Senge there did the fifth discipline on a business level, talking about how to create a culture of learning within a business. So they all have to do with systems thinking. And systems thinking, people have been talking about systems, and right now systemic change is kind of a really beautiful word to talk about and think about, but I don't know how many people are talking about what systems thinking actually is and what it consists of. So I'm not going to go into a full in-depth version of what systems thinking is, but the basic, on the most simple level of systems thinking, I think about molecules. And I bought one of those little molecule kit things. So we have, H2O, and we have oxygen. And then I have two over here. This one that looks like a little dog here. Oh, I should hold it like this. Here, this one is ethanol. And this one is dimethyl ether. So I don't know if you can exactly tell on here, but they are basically made out of the same smaller atoms here together to create a larger molecule, but they create different things because of the relationships between the parts. So this is how I emphasize that the relationship is just as important as the parts of the system. So these are simple systems. Then we get larger and more complex with systems. You think of the human body and how everything works together to create, I'm sitting here now talking to you in this format. things are happening at the same time that I'm not even thinking about. My blood's rushing through my body, I'm breathing, I'm blinking, I'm seeing, my hands are moving. And these are things that are happening without me really having to think about them, because we are a complex system. And then as we get bigger and bigger, we talk about neighborhoods and communities, cities, and it gets to be this global scale thing and even beyond. And all of those systems, it's not like there's one system and there's another system. Like, these systems are completely interwoven, like a web, interconnected, and they all affect one another all at the same time. So everything is ebbing and flowing all at the same time. And that is super important to remember when we're thinking about systems. So we can change certain things on part of a system, but it's also the relationship that matters. So when we go back to sustainability and we're thinking about sustainability and we're thinking about systems, we are focusing on, even in this Time magazine I have here on sustainability, as you can see the pictures around it, those are all the kind of things that I was talking about. They're parts of a system, but how they interrelate with one another is just as important. How we relate to all of these parts of a system are just as important. So focusing on the relationships is how I want to redefine sustainability. It improves relationships between each other, to improve relationship with the land, and to improve relationships with spirituality. So improving relationships between each other as a part of sustainability, I, for the life of me, can't understand how we can get anything real or big done if we can't learn how to work better together, to collaborate with one another, to build trust again with one another, to manage our conflict, and to see how we can be, I don't want to say tolerant, because tolerant still is kind of like, it pushes people off and it doesn't really see the other person. But building those relationships with one another so we can effectively collaborate with one another. Building relationships takes time, and not a lot of people want to take that time to build those things. And until we do, we're kind of in a weird place where if you disagree with me, then we can't be friends, or we can't talk to one another, or we're going to be super hateful or judgmental because we just disagree. And at some point, we have to kind of put our personal opinions on the side burner to do the work of being more sustainable for our planet. And then on another level is improved relationships with the land. So there's a lot to say about our relationship with the land. I'm kind of like playing with it in my head as far as what that story looks like. But we have gotten away from the land. I mean, we don't farm our own land anymore. Our food gets shipped to us. It goes to the grocery store. We're not really seeing it being planted. We're not harvesting it ourselves. We're not really bringing it from the farm to our table. Some of us are, and that's amazing, but a greater portion of us are disconnected from how that part of the system works. And when we are separate or disconnected from that, we break down that relationship. Additionally, I do think that technology has a huge factor in that relationship with the land. The more we go on the direction of technology, the less we are outside, and there's this disproportionate imbalance that is happening. So if we're into technology, we need to make time to go back outside and be in nature and commune with nature, to be a part of nature, because we are not separate from nature. We are part of it. But we have forgotten that, and there's that disconnection there, or a thought of being above nature or beyond it, and we're here just to impact nature that's separate from us. And that couldn't be further from the truth of how it actually is. We're so much a part of it, and it's a part of us, and we need to reconnect or create that feeling of the symbiotic relationship that is actually happening. So redefining sustainability also includes improving relationships with our spirituality. And this is a kind of a topic, again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but this has been pretty big for me, and diving deeper into sustainability, spirituality for myself, and making more of a connection in that way has also rebuilt for myself that sense of belonging to land and to the earth, and a greater responsibility and feeling of wanting to build relationships with people also. So spirituality does have a role to play in this, and it really kind of depends on how big of a role you want it to have. And I feel like part of that dissertation or research I plan on doing in the future is going to include some sort of spirituality component to it, whether or not in order to have people care more, make it more personal, or to make sustaining or longer lifestyle changes in their life. I'm thinking that there needs to be some sort of spirituality and awareness component to it. And I want to study that more in depth. But I do, on a personal level, think that it plays a pretty big role, because it also, within spirituality, talks about the interconnectedness of all things. On a most basic level, a lot of religions or spiritual theories or practices have this underlying sense of compassion for all and belonging to everyone. So it goes in line with the systems thinking. The systems thinking is really interesting because it comes from both directions of spirituality and science, and it combines them together. So physicists in the scientific world are seeing the interconnections between all things, and how they're all affecting one another at the same time. So it's a really interesting time to see how that's all coming together, and they don't necessarily have to be divided between science and spirituality. So if you are more science-minded or more spirituality-minded, it works for both of you, both of those two minds. So me wanting to redefine sustainability, again, it includes relationships, and it includes working on our relationships between each other, our relationship with the land, and our relationship with spirituality, whatever that looks like for you. And here's a quote from Donella Meadows in her book, Thinking in Systems, which I have right here if you want to take a look at the cover. This is her book. Paradigms are the sources of systems. From them, from shared social agreements about the nature of reality, come system goals and information flows, feedback, stocks, flows, and everything else about systems. So she outlines in her book different ways on how we can change a system. And you can definitely change a system by affecting some parts of the system. So parts of the system they call stocks, and how they affect one another are flows. And as I go back to this, like, I would call these stocks of sustainable systems, and the relationship between them are the flows. So how to change them, again, she lists, I think, 12 ways to influence a system, whether we're talking about systemic change in our society or government, or we're talking about smaller systems, school systems, we're talking about our health, anything like that. There's different ways to create change within those systems. The more effective change and long-lasting changes are if you are changing your paradigms, or in other words, your worldview or perceptions about how things are or work. So she has this one as number 2. Number 1 is transcending paradigm. So she calls this one number 2 because it's still hard, but it's more common. Transcending is the realization that having a paradigm is a paradigm. It like kind of is this weird back and forth sort of thing. It's funny, yeah. Or understanding a paradigm is a paradigm, and that there are no paradigms or something like that. So it's transcending paradigms is number 1. So this is her number 2, paradigms. And it's what I want to get at Elevate Palm Beach. I want to provide a lot of educational sources to plant the seed of paradigm shifts, whatever that looks like for someone. And whether it is upping our spirituality or getting more in contact with that, if it's understanding sustainability on a different level, that's not just stocks or parts of that. If it goes beyond recycling, it goes beyond less consumption of our water, or not driving so much. Those are definitely all things that we can do on an everyday, in our daily lives, that can help that system. But for long sustaining sustainability, a true sustainability, we need to focus on the relationship. So I'm changing or shifting paradigms to focus on relationships over the pieces, because I feel like if we can shift our perceptions, if we can build those relationships, that other stuff will come into place. Also, we can work with one another to solve bigger issues, to be more sustainable in our lives. So suggestions, it all starts with you. Systemic or systems thinking is a huge prospect. Changing paradigms can feel very overwhelming. And it is a lot of work, and it's work that you have to want to do. And yes, many people need to do it in order for it to work, but it certainly starts with you in your personal and daily life. So that can include looking more into social justice and what that means or looks like to you. And I'm not talking just about looking at like anti-racism that's going on right now, but maybe some other things that are going on for you in your life. Maybe it's homelessness. Maybe it is feeding the hungry. Maybe it's making sure youth have food in school. Whatever that looks like for you, kind of getting more involved in that way, and seeing how you can personally affect even that on a smaller scale, those systems. It's taking a look at education and how we educate today. Education is being looked at very much these days as far as what to do next. People are looking at Common Core. I believe Florida just got rid of Common Core not too long ago. I don't know if they came up with anything different to replace it. We are in the time of COVID now also, so it looks even more different, or maybe they put a pause on the future of what that education can look like. So education is being looked at, and even in my studies, talking about different ways of educating, like experiential project-based learning, as better, more inclusive ways on how to get youth to learn. For myself, I do personally believe we should add more social emotional parts to our education. That may look like team building, the ability to build trust, some activities around communicating more effectively with one another, handling conflict, self-regulation, self-validation, self-esteem, self-resiliency. Adding those components into education, I feel, goes into social justice too. But that is another way to look at sustainability. Mindfulness, empathy, compassion, that those all kind of go into my spirituality and belonging piece to it, because they expand. When you expand one, I feel like you expand the other. And consumption, continue following the food system. So looking back at our parts of a system, I feel like a lot of times we look at part of the food system as getting to our plates, but once it gets past our plates into the trash, we no longer think about it anymore. So it's been certainly eye-opening to think about where my food comes from, because a lot of it I don't know. Buying food from the grocery store, whether it's my poultry that I'm getting or some other food, I don't always know where it's coming from, especially if it's been processed in some sort of way, even if it's considered healthy according to Whole Foods or something like that. You just don't know actually where it's coming from, which is then contributing to extra water use for processing. It comes to increased carbon footprint, because now we're transporting things to us, to our grocery stores. We're driving to the grocery store. Think about all the plastic that's around your food and that's going in the trash. How much we're consuming, not just food, but in all things. People think Amazon is great, but they are also contributing to the carbon footprint, because now there's a ton more trucks around. I haven't looked into it, but I did hear that they were going to make their trucks use better fuel or something like that. I haven't looked into it much. Maybe somebody else knows. But following that food footprint, if we're not composting, where does it go? It goes into the landfill. And how does the landfill handle food? A lot of times it's under the ground. And food, if it's not getting oxygen, it doesn't break down as fast as it could be. So now we're just contributing to our landfills at a faster rate. And it just kind of goes on and on. It depletes our soil nutrients, our water, our soil erosion. So continuing that food and thinking about our waste from it, how much do we get rid of, all the plastics, are we composting, and thinking about how much we're consuming in general. Like, are we overeating? Are we overbuying? I started eliminating stuff from my apartment because I just started to feel like I had too much stuff just lying around. So really thinking about those things, in addition to what we already consider to be sustainability. So closing to the end here, just wanted to bring up a couple of events. So we just started this time out thing once a month from 9 to noon on a Saturday or Sunday. I've done 2 of them so far, and they've been awesome. The next one is on November 7th at the High Ridge Scrub Natural Area. It's a nice little hiking area. I'll try to find some gopher turtles, which are keystone animals. We'll talk about those. And that is, again, on the 7th. And then my You in Place program starts on November 21st. So there's time to sign up still for that. This is a year-long program, which sounds kind of intimidating for some people, but the program is a paid program, so it's $375 for the whole year. And what that gets you is some facilitators, some field guides. You'll get a notebook, and every month we'll give you some more information into that. Facilitators plan to go to Flagler Museum, which it'll pay for your entry fee for that. So you get a lot of different stuff within that program, but basically the program is to learn about different places in Palm Beach County, to reconnect to the outdoors, especially where we live, because the idea is if we connect to it, if we learn about our area, then we will build our sense of belonging and want to do more for our area of Palm Beach County. So during that time, we'll talk about the history of Florida. We'll talk about some stories of Palm Beach County. We'll talk about the flora, the fauna, the geology, some environmental philosophies. So there's a lot to this program, and I'm really excited about providing it. So there's still space open for that program. So you can find all of that information on my website, and to sign up for the You in Place program on my website. The timeout can be found on my Facebook page, my Elevate Palm Beach Facebook page. And if you have any questions, here's my information again, elevatepalmbeach.com. I don't have my email on here, but it's melissa@elevatepb.com. Again, melissa@elevatepb.com. And that is all she wrote. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And I hope to speak to you soon. I hope you enjoyed my presentation on redefining sustainability, broadening the definition to include relationship building between each other, the land, and our own spirituality, whatever that looks like. Thank you.